Beasty versus Louis, two familiar players, two that are not shy of this late game, and apparently two that seem to ID the fetish each might have for Chinese. That's not a ban we've been expecting much in the opening phase, but gotta say, this weekend so far, it's been cropping up a lot with the four remaining players.
Yeah, China is rising a lot in popularity recently, and I'm trying to think. It's probably not this single Barbican change that did it, but I guess just generally as patches go, you're going to see players get more greedy the longer the patch goes. So China typically seems to get better, but interestingly, we're at the very start of a patch, so you wouldn't expect a greedy civilization like China to be that much stronger here.
No, I think like the main one that comes to mind, you mentioned them already, Puppy Paw with that 7-win streak on the Chinese in this tournament is like the biggest threat, but other people showing a lot of respect. Kind of an interesting one coming out here to think about though, is that Louis has his own win streak he will not be able to flex in this series, at least at the beginning of Lidakor. Jean d'Arc actually getting banned away from him because he wanted those Ibids first. And I don't know about you, but I'm surprised that anyone is letting Ibids through.
It's a tricky one, right? We've been talking about this throughout the event. You take away a civilization that's perceived to be extremely powerful, but that means that you let another one slip past. Talk about Ottomans, for instance, also available for loueMT. So in many ways, this comes down to okay, almost pick your poison scenario. I'm going to ban this civilization because I don't like the matchup, but that means that I'm letting a couple of key civilizations slip through. Like again, Ayyubids for Louis, talk about Ottomans getting through. On the other side, Jean d'Arc, Japanese for Beasty. So both of these players have some of these more powerful, these juggernaut civilizations almost.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting actually, Aussie, right? With the changes to the Ottomans, I think people expect them to be taken down a peg, but this is baffling. In the playoffs, they've been played 4 times. They've lost 3 times. The nerfs that we were seeing around the Vizier points and the production rate seem to have hit a bit harder than what people were expecting.
Yeah, this is always something that's really concerning with balance is you've got all these different levers and you've got to be careful about pulling too many at the same time. And we saw the nerf, much deserved nerf to the Great Bombard. But then I think the main things that hit them were just, the combination of Vizier points with the military training. So yeah, it's going to be curious to see how they stack up and what the devs look to do with them. But indeed, it's interesting how far they've fallen down from where they once were.
Yeah, and I think some of these other picks still being a bit of a high priority speaks to the player's comfort, right? Beasty, the Malian King, is an interesting one for you lads. There is one Civ in playoffs that has a 0% win rate, and it has been picked 4 times. Can you guess what that Civ is, Lidakor?
I cannot, but I can just open up my cheat sheet to actually find out. But I think it's quicker if you just tell us.
It's the Malian King's favorite. The Ilalu ways have been crippled, which is actually surprising to me because I don't know if you guys knew this. There's a funny little I don't know if it's intended behavior right now with javelins, where javelins actually counter springles.
Yes, I have seen this. They do a lot of damage to springles. So, you don't need to get your own springles. You can do the Mangonel Javelin Donzo combo. I guess that would probably work pretty well.
I mean, people wanted better answers to springles. I just don't think anyone saw that one coming. But yeah, it's interesting that BC still leans into these things like the English, like the Malians. I love to see those Abbassids though. Kind of crazy. Civ went unpicked for a long time, and it actually has the best win rate alongside the Ibids. I think Ibids and Abbassids are both at 100% win rate. They're the only Civs outside Rus, which we'd expect. I think we saw one French pick, but the ones getting picked, those ones are the ones dominating. But we do have our draft for the first game. We're going to be going to Rocky Canyon. We've got Delhi versus Byzantines. Now, this is an interesting one, Lidakor, because I just mentioned Byzantines are not having a great time in these playoffs. Delhi still looking strong and sturdy, though. 3 wins, 2 losses.
Yeah, Delhi, it's been at the top for a long, long time, KP. It's that strong combination of an early game push and a lot of late game prowess ever since you had Village Fortresses changed the way it was. And now you're looking at this civilization as one of the more complete civilizations, something that can play into a more aggro meta, but it's also a civilization that's okay sitting back a little more and just letting the opponent boom, securing map control, and then taking this to an intermediate stage. I feel like you have a lot of diversity for the Delhi, and especially in this tournament, the Elite Classic 2, we've also seen a lot of Delhi late game, just showing how versatile the civilization can be throughout the game.
And I think we've seen a mix of results between the Delhi and the Byzantines, right, Drongo? I think we've seen it twice. There was the Vortex Puppy Paw series where Puppy Paw went for the Hippodrome build. He was able to win in under 15 minutes, which is just absurd against the Delhi. And then we had the game yesterday which looked more like a conscription run by Beasty. He bought so many villages, he actually couldn't afford them. So kind of makes you wonder, what kind of game are we in store for? Considering the names, I've got a feeling we might be going to that late game.
I have a sneaky suspicion we will be. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it stacks up, because obviously we've seen what a massacre it was yesterday. It was just absolute next level, this matchup. So I suspect we're probably going to be seeing a late game. And that's exciting, because I think where Beasty preps for the late game, you know you're in for a good game, because if he wants to get there, he will typically get there. And hopefully we see how he prepares for it. I'd be curious to see landmark choices here. I suspect it's probably going to be Tower of the Victory, but I'd love to see Dome of the Faith come out for him. Maybe looks to mix something up. But yeah, it's undoubtedly, this is going to be good.
Oh, I'm excited for it. I mean, the interesting thing to think about here, Lido, is these guys scrim together regularly. They both have a fetish for the late game, I think it's fair to say at this point. And I believe Beasty even kind of said midway through their scrims, you know, if there's one player that's kind of looking spooky in the late game to him, it's Louis.
Oh yeah, and when you look at loueMT's trajectories, performance in this event, you see a player that's good all across the game. He is very aggressive in early game, and he is able to put a lot of pressure on any player, really, even the best defenders. But he's also a player that doesn't shy away from playing late game, and that kind of duality is something that most players actually do not have. Talk about Beasty being one of the players who is just good all around, early game, mid game, late game. Kind of the same can be said of loueMT. And when you compare this to some other players, some that, for instance, love to play early game aggro, but kind of stall out in late game, that just goes to show why these two have made it all the way to the very end here. Whatever happens in the game, they do have an answer to it. And that's a very valuable trait and skill to possess in competitive AoE4.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks credence to Louis that he's the only one who has a win over Marine Lord, right? Like, obviously, he had that 4-0 yesterday that was not in his favor, but in the group stage, he took that 2-1 victory, Drongo. You know, we actually saw a very interesting kind of mutation in Louis in that group stage. I'm wondering if maybe the patch came a little bit too close to the grand finals weekend, and Louis maybe didn't have enough time to prep reset. Maybe an extra day to reset and breathe is going to give us a different Louis on the second day of the weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was it. I know with Marine Lord in particular, he has always been, I think of him as like a very studious player, always studying, always looking. And I know that within seconds of getting access to the new patch, he was straight on there studying it. He'd logged in on his account, and I was trying to have a sticky beak. I couldn't find too much, but I think that could be the difference between the two yesterday. So hopefully Louis had time today to go do some research, study the strats a little bit, and work on that metagaming. And comes in today swinging hard.
And you know, I'm just gonna put a little something out there that I want to see in the series. It has to happen before a redraft. I noticed that these guys rounded out their drafts by basically picking what I'd say is the signatures here at this point. HRE in the hands of Louis, and then you've got Jeanne d'Arc in the hands of Beasty. I'm not sure if that works, the HRE. The buffs were kind of insane, so maybe we'll see. But fingers crossed we get that a little bit deeper in the draft. But, you know, opening up on Rocky Canyon, are we expecting an attack-defend mentality here, Lidakor, where the Byzantines just have to chill? Or is this going to be more of an attack on both sides?
I feel like, especially considering that you are facing the Delhi, and Beasty, as you kind of touched on that before, doesn't shy away from taking this all the way to the Imperial, I feel like the Byzantine player has to make something happen. They do have the tools to be competitive in late game, but do you want to play a little bit more passive, a little bit more eco-focused, forfeit all the sacred sites, and then just let Beasty get to Castle Age, let him get to Village Fortresses? I feel like that's a risky call. So I feel like Louis needs to play aggressive to a certain extent. I don't think he needs to necessarily go all in aggro in feudal, but at the very least, he needs to contest map control, because at the same time, if he doesn't do that, he could easily find himself overwhelmed by all those Delhi forces in feudal.
Well, we're just a few seconds away, and I feel like it is only my duty to remind you all about subbing. And that if you put at least 10 subs in, if you gift at least 10 subs at once, your name is going to appear on screen. So what I want you guys to do, I want you to wait for an intense moment, what looks like the most epic fight you've ever seen throughout the course of this day. And as soon as it's there, it turns into an auction house moment, right? To get that memorable moment, is it going to be the 10 subs? Is it going to be the 20 subs, the 50 subs? I leave it in your hands. But now, boys, I'm going to leave the games in your hands. It's time for our third place match. Best of 5. We kick off on Rocky Canyon. Beasty with the Delhi and Louis with the Byzantines.
All right, Lidakor. It's time, baby. Here we go. The very first game of your best of 5 series. This is going to be the third place match. I don't know about you, but I got a little bit of funk going on my screen at the moment, so you'll have to excuse me while I work that out. But let's get into it, shall we? Spawning in on the west side of the map in the color orange, playing as the Delhi Sultanate. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him as the Beast from the east. This time he's on that west side. It's Beasty.
And on the other side, the big rising star of AoE4, loueMT, now representing Team Elephant from China. He is going to be in command of the Byzantines with a fitting color, the purple.
Indeed, it is. I feel like it's mandatory. They should make a law about this, Lidakor. If you're playing the Byzantines, you got to get on it. We got ourselves a little bit of split screen action here. One of the brand new things that we've seen come out recently. A huge shout out to our magical cow who is going to be doing this for us. Beautiful job that he's done. Look at that. We've got our sheep in parallel. 4 sheep versus 3 sheep. It's looking beautiful.
Oh yeah,
now,
that's actually one of the cool things that we have here for the final day of production. You see split screen, left and right, of course, the 2 players' perspectives. And on the minimap in the bottom right, you can actually see the scouting info for both of these players.
Yeah, it's great getting that different split screen. Now, one of the things I want to talk about here is the fact that we've got Louis quite early on. He's out on the berries. And that might not seem like a big deal, but to me, that is a big deal because it means that Louis is going to be looking to get out some mercenaries very early on. So it could be a very quick opening that we see. We know that there are possibilities where you can get mercenaries around the 5-minute 10 mark, 5-minute 15 mark, get out those early longbows. But I'm curious which direction he goes, whether he's going to go into javelins, longbows, or keshiks. Do you have any idea on which way you think he might be going?
I think one thing to look at here is that he opened with the berries, which is something that you usually do if you don't really care about the winery later on. So we could actually see an early hippodrome build over here because by the time he gets to feudal age, he's going to pretty much deplete his starting berries. And I think, considering that you're facing the Delhi, who is usually likely to open with Ghazi Raiders, I can see a Hippodrome Horseman opening being reasonable for Louis.
All right, well, we'll have to keep an eye on it, but the age jumps are now starting to come through, and indeed you are correct. Imperial Hippodrome going to be the way that it goes. It's going to pull off 3 villages from the berries, just throw that down, get it up nice and slowly, not too fast. You can already see the olive oil that he is cooking. He's at 455 already. 500 is going to be how much he needs for those longbows. I think he's going to need, what does it work out to be? 480, I think, for the javelins, but I'll be honest, I never really go the javelins when I'm playing the Byzantines. It's always those longbows.
Yeah, one of the things I love about Byzantines, and I think part of the reason why it's a very popular civilization pick in competitive AoE4 events, is the versatility that they get from all these mercenaries. Talk about longbows, talk about javelin throwers. Heck, they can actually go for elephants later on, and you know, that kind of diversity in their unit composition is immensely valuable in a competitive setting.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. It can also be a double-edged sword. This is something I've actually pointed out to the devs. I've said, there is so much diversity when you're playing the Byzantines, it gets hard to add things to the control group. Like I'm adding Lance Connects, and I'm adding my Lemannai and my Varangian Guard, and then I've got, on another control group, I've got my longbows and my crossbows, and I've got archers. It's like there's so many different units that I'm controlling. It's a hard civilization just for that alone. So anyway, we see that Louis is still collecting more olive oil. So I'm curious exactly what the idea behind this is. He could just be looking to play a pretty standard 1TC opening here. Yeah, for the moment. Now, you guys will see a couple of little errors going on the screen. We're going to be working behind the scenes to fix this up. It might be a little bit laggy. We might have a couple of FPS drops, but I promise you we will get to it. We'll find the bottom of it, and we will sort it all out. All right, age up is through. It's going to be Beasty, who's up. Pretty late age ups here, 4:30. On the other side, Louis with a pretty late age up as well, so not going super duper quick. 4:45. We'll have a little bit of a look here as the scouts come out. the new age has begun. And there we go, spotting out that scout on the backside, or having a look through. Let's take a look. I want to have a look inside the base of Louis and get a bit of an idea as to whether he's throwing down that mercenary house just yet.
Yeah, I think he should, because first of all, as we kind of talked about this, he can open with the Hippodrome, but if you're so heavy on berries early on, then you have to leverage this. He's at 700 olive oil. It would be almost wasteful not to go for any mercenaries at this point.
Yeah, you've got to run it out. So I'm curious exactly which direction he goes, because obviously this map, there's quite a bit of berries out here to grab, so he could easily leverage this into, double longbow, triple longbow. But we don't see anything on the UI just yet. But have a look at this. It's a second TC maybe coming out from Beasty. There's a lot of villagers here on stone, and immediate pressure getting placed. Just the racks coming out to respond, though. Spearman will be able to nullify this for the moment, but still no military units in queue from Louis out of that mercenary house just yet. He's got it on the front. Let's take a look and see whether he's picked his contract up just yet, because this is... There it is. It's going to be Keshiks coming out for him. Interesting decision.
It's also very interesting to see Beasty going for a 2-town center approach over here, assuming that indeed this is going to be the plan for him. He's up to 400 stone, actually. It's not something that you commonly see from Delhi, mainly because they prefer to get into Castle Age and then just use their own keeps as their quote-unquote town centers, their extra town centers. Beasty's playing a very different Delhi game from what we usually see. Very little map control, sacred sites barely contested, limited investment into army. Instead, he's working towards a second TC. Now, one problem that he could face is that he's kind of confined into his base, so finding that optimal second TC spot might be a bit of a challenge. He opts to drop it on the gold, and I guess fairly close to the berries as well. But you can see that this is definitely a more condensed base layout for Beasty, as he doesn't really have the liberty of moving out to those more resource-rich areas of the map.
Yeah, I'm really curious what we're going to see out of him today, just because this is not the standard way that you see Delhi being played. I like the fact that Louis also gone into the Keshiks here. Initially, I was apprehensive about this, but the fact that Beasty's going to be playing defensive, I think the Keshiks will complement the Horsemen quite well, because he's going to have the Hippodrome to be able to buff up those units if they do dive underneath the town centers, which, typically if your opponent's got lots of villages, you want to be diving them to try and take those villages out. And with this town center coming up on the gold at the front as well, makes me think we could be looking at a fast castle here. The main question I'm going to have, though, is where's he going to get all this food from? It's a hunt. There's berries just outside that town center. Is that what he's going to look to try and get up to Castle Age with?
Yeah, one thing that's often forgotten with civilizations like the Delhi or the HRE is that the resource gathering buff you get on resources like berries, for instance, means that you actually deplete those resources inside your base a lot quicker. So one thing that Beasty needs to be cautious about is not to run out of food, especially because he opted to place his second DC such that it doesn't really protect a lot of extra food. These berries are very much borderline. He opted not to take the hunt, and you can actually see archers on the other side from loueMT as well. So I feel like Beasty could have issues accessing food unless he starts securing map control, but I love this move, Aussie. He's walling off the southern side, and he does so at the very moment that Louis is swinging north. So this is perfect timing from Beasty. He knows fully well that these, I guess, spearmen won't be aggressed over there, obviously leveraging the fact as well that Delhi can use their spearmen to build walls.
That's exactly right. It's the perfect timing to do it. And here we can see a little bit of damage getting put in onto that scout. But of course, Beasty knows exactly what is up, and he says, I am not going to fall for that trick. Doesn't even take damage on the spears. It's only the scout. Villagers, he keeps them alive. But at the front, it looks like one of them will go down. So that mill will not get up. Neither will that outpost. A lot of health lost on one of those villagers. But slowly and steadily, Louis begins to build up. Now, keep in mind, behind this, he's also got his own economy that he is building. He's got wheelbarrow, he's got his double broadaxe, but I want to check in with his system network. Let's take a look and see what level his system network is currently running, because I suspect he might be up to a 2, maybe even a 3 by now.
Yeah, it's just level 2 for the time being, but he's getting close to being able to drop a 3rd, and the immediate buff that you're getting from these cisterns is actually exactly what he needs to offset that initial boost that Beasty's getting for his eco. And I think that's the reason why it's a little concerning for Beasty right now. He needs to build up a pretty significant villager lead to compensate for those cisterns. And until that point, loueMT is going to have the map control advantage, and Louis actually has the eco advantage even.
Yeah, this is It's always one of those difficult things playing 2 TC up against the 1 TC, especially with a civilization like the Byzantines, because they have so many ways that they can build upon their economy. But I'm curious to see whether Louis looks to stick in Feudal Age here or go Castle Age, because I definitely feel like this would be a perfect timing to go Castle Age here and look for a kill. I guess the alternative is that he can just go into Siege Engineering like he's doing right now and throw down some Kairusophons. Look to put on some pressure to this forward town center.
I like this a lot more for Louis, to be honest. Getting to Castle Age is a bit of a stretch with the eco that he has. At the same time, he's getting a bunch of olive oil that's near useless when it comes to rushing Castle. But it's very useful when it comes to doubling down on Feudal Age aggression. And you see, his army is definitely a lot more convincing than what Beasty has. Beasty's army is almost exclusively spearmen, only 2 Ghazi Raiders out there.
Yeah, and when you compare that to Louis' army, which is 19 archers, that's a lot of archers you're going to have to get through to actually stop that one shot from happening. So Louis is going to be able to move forward with them, and he's going to be able to threaten this town center pretty quickly. I suspect it may be going down, and I don't think there's much that Beasty can do about this early on in game 1.
Yeah, I feel like Beast is just going to have to bail on this. Look at that hero Siphon just burning that building down in an instant. Beasty knows fully well that there is no point fighting this. He doesn't have the army to fight this. He might charge to try and save the DC, but at the end of the day, the town center is going to go down over here. And I just don't think Beasty has what it takes to fight this here.
And that's going to be it. Game number 1 already going over to loueMT. A very quick one. And I feel like Beasty was testing a little bit there. Wasn't 100% sure if it could work. But I guess he was hoping that Louis wasn't going to be putting on too much pressure early on. Guess it wasn't the case.
Yeah, this was definitely a more experimental build, so to say, from Beasty. Maybe he didn't like the long-term prospects of this matchup and said, look, I feel like if I play conventional, I just don't have a good matchup, so I'm going to try something off meta. Maybe he expected loueMT to play a little bit more passively as well, but Louis saw the 2 TC build from Beasty. Granted, Beasty had a forward stone, so it was very easy to spot for Louis. And from that point on, he just went all in aggro and punished that 2 TC expansion.
Yeah. I've seen this work once before, and ironically, it was actually loueMT that made it work. Instead of using the Tower of Victory, though, he used the what's the other landmark called? I forget. Gosh, my memory's gone terribly lately, Lidakor. But we move on to game number 2. We already know the matchup. This is going to be a good one, an Abbasid Ayyubid matchup. So we've got the Dome of the Faith. Thank you, KP. KP helping out from chat right there. Jeez, I tell you what, I'm going to need some faith after that one. That was
apparently
tough.
I disappeared, but don't worry, folks. I'm actually here. And we're going to be taking you into Lipany. There we go, production. Thank you so much for fixing me. And boy, oh boy, do we have an interesting matchup over here. Abbasids versus Ayyubids. Mom, can we have Ayyubids at home? We have Ayyubids at home.
This is... I kind of like this matchup for the Abbasid, really, because the Ayyubid, typically, they want to do their military wing into eco wing, get all their villagers out, try and delay their opponent just a little bit by getting that camel out. But the one thing to note is that Beasty going military wing, he's already going to have military out on the field. That's if he goes into the military wing. He could look to go into eco wing, obviously with the buff recently to eco wing as well as to fresh food stuff. It kind of invites you to go for eco wing a little bit more than what people have been doing. So we'll see exactly how he responds, and I'm curious to see whether we get any more testing out of him.
It's always a tricky choice, right? I feel like this is not a very favorable matchup for the Abbasids, but it really comes down to what the map generation looks like on Lipany. Some of these Lipany generations have a lot more cliffs. It's a lot more defendable and slower paced. Some of them almost looks like Dry Arabia. So I feel like the initial strategy choice of the players almost comes down to what kind of generation we are getting here for Lipany.
Yeah, sometimes you can get really... I remember playing Lipany back in the OG days, and you would get some crazy spawns where you'd get, like a forest at the front, and then you'd get a cliff, and then another forest, and another cliff, and you could just wall it off with tiny little segments. So I know that with this version of Lipany, it has been fixed up a little bit, but it still is, or it can be, a very wallable map. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that, because that can be really good on the defensive if you're looking to play and avoid being harassed.
But it looks like game number 2 is up, folks. 1-0 lead right now for loueMT against Beasty. this could be the first time he ever beats Beasty in a competitive set, although the sample size is rather small. This is only the third time that these two have ever played against each other in a competitive series in AoE 4.
All right. Well, the game is about to begin. Rather. Jeez, Lidakor, I'm starting to lose it right now. I guess what is the time? It's 2:30 in the morning here. Yes, it's only natural. But the game's about to begin. Oh my! I said it again. Begin. Jeez, I'm losing it. The game is about to begin, Lidakor. Let's get into it.
Well, it looks like we are being baited. We might have some slight tech issues on one of the players' side, so we actually have to restart the game. Means that we have a little bit more time to discuss the remainder of the draft over here. And I think this might be a good time to actually bring back KP and have a bit of a chat about, I guess, what's coming up beyond game number 2.
Oh, he's put me on the spot. Good film here. Hello, folks. Yes, welcome back. Interesting first game, actually. That type of aggression out of Louis is what I think is making him a really threatening player. But, the interesting thing to actually look at now, boys, is are we going to have a very quick third place series on our hands? Because I've got to say, this Iobid versus Abasa matchup heavily favors the Iobids. In fact, before the most recent buffs, I would put this at like an 80-20 in favor of Iobids. The problem, and I'm sure you remember, Drongo, we've seen it so many times over the years, is Abasids, they don't really play tempo very well, right? Like when you're talking about these quick unlocks, Castle, Imperial, that's where they tend to stutter a little bit. And you have to realize, Iobids, I mean, is there anyone who's a truer king right now of those tempo tech up timings?
Yeah, I don't think so. Like when I think of the tempo tech up timing, it's got to be the Aobids, right? They're incredible. They're able to match 2 TC builds very easily on the village account, secure relics, pop down those additional town centers easily afterwards, and they've taken full map control. It just feels so good playing the Aobids. You feel like you can do absolutely everything, and there doesn't really feel like there's a way to stop them either because they've got that early aggression coming out of the gates. So unless you are very coordinated in your response, which I'm sure Beasty will be, it's going to be difficult.
And what kind of response do you think we're going to be looking at here, Lidakor? Because I feel like, military wing's still as good as it was. We have been seeing some interesting TC builds, especially with the buffs to fresh foodstuffs. Is that maybe the optimal way to now try and contest the new Camel Lords?
Maybe. I feel like the issue that you're running into is that Camel Lancers is something that you're going to struggle against no matter what. That's one of the most powerful and unique units available in the entire game, and it's something that's challenging to deal with in any civilization matchup. Especially when the two civilizations are so similar, it gets even more so of a challenge. I don't know what to expect from this matchup, to be honest, because I do remember Lipany games back in the day, Abbasid Mirrors, where we've seen essentially a race towards 19 town centers on each side. This could also go in that direction. But I think loueMT with the Iobids has that flexibility and versatility when it comes to hitting these timings and potentially playing something a little different than just an eco-focused approach.
It's also quite comedial, isn't it, when you think about it, Drongo, right? Like on one side, we've got the Abbasids, the OG of this Civ that loves TCs, loves villages, loves to build them until the sun sets. And then the new breed with the Iobids, it's almost like they're allergic to TCs, right? They just want the relics, which funnily enough is something we rarely ever see Abbasid players remember to get. I think it's quite interesting to think just how many examples we've got where old Civ and new variant Civ play so drastically different.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most obvious ones. That the stark difference between the two. You've got the Aobids, which are probably more like a Holy Roman Empire-esque. Their main focus just getting to that castle age. Yeah, compared to the Abbasid, which love to stall out those games, take it late game. But it is about time for us to get into the game, KP.
It is.
I'm hungry for action.
Well, let's see if it's going to be a camel extravaganza. Let's see if we can get that late game that has been fabled and dictated to us so often that we see between Beasty and Louis. It's time for game number 2.
All right, Lidakor, here we go. We got ourselves purple again for loueMT. Very exciting. We're on Lipany. We're going to be looking out to see how good these walls are going to be for these defenders, but let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, spawning in on the south side of the map in the color orange, putting down his House of Wisdom right now. It's Beasty on the Abbasid dynasty.
And on the other side, with the Abbasid variant, we have loueMT with a 1-0 lead now. looking to get potentially his best ever tournament performance in AoE 4, is actually not far away from potentially securing that third place, but Beasty might have a few things to say about that. But Aussie, as we kind of touched on this in the pre-game, this is an uphill's battle for the Abbasids. Everything that the Abbasids can do, so can the Ayobids, just better.
Yeah, it really is. I'm curious how Beasty is going to find a way through this, or what he's thinking about, to potentially to be able to counter what's going to be thrown at him from Louis, because it does really feel like one of those, as KP was saying, an open shut case. So I'm curious to see exactly what we've got. The sheep count at the moment looking reasonable for Beasty. We'll check in on Louis as well. Maybe get a little bit of split screen action. I can feel myself itching for it. I know Cow's itching for it as well. Cow, give it to me, baby. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Look at that. We got ourselves. They're in the same region of the map at the moment. You can see that Louis crossed over to Beasty's side. Now Beasty, he's heading over into Louis' side.
Now, one thing that you can take away from this is that the eastern side of the map is completely uncontested. Neither of the players has scouted that, which means that you still have a lot of sheep there to take. At the same time, this was a race to the left, which kind of means that, loueMT took a couple of sheep from there. Beasty does have a couple trailing him as well, but neither of the players were able to secure the majority of the sheep so far. And I think Louis should have the upper hand when it comes to securing the remainder of the sheep. He's the one heading to that actually uncontested area on the eastern side of the map.
Yeah, you can see him heading over there now, so that's definitely going to favor Louis. But Beasty will be able to get that top side. And you can always find those little jackpots very close to the town centers. But we do have the age-ups coming through.
Whoa.
And Beasty's going for a trade wing. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Can we take a look down towards the south side of the map? Because could this be the way that he gets back into the game? Think about it like this, right? He knows he's up against the camel, so he can very easily... Oh, gosh, this is going to be tough. How's he going to fight this? I don't know how this is going to be possible.
One thing to highlight with this map generation is that we have a lot of cliffs. So this is definitely one of the more defendable map generations. And generally speaking, trade builds are extremely powerful if your opponent isn't playing very aggressive at the beginning of the game. So if loueMT is thinking about a multi-TC approach, the trade build can be easily utilized to beat that. I think the concern for Beasty is that both of the neutral markets are out there in the middle of nowhere. Obviously, Beasty wants to use the one to the north of his base, but even that is going to be challenging to defend because the area around is just wide open. At the same time, we have a Desert Raider opening here from loueMT, so he's going to put some early pressure on Beasty, and he should be able to find out about this trade wing very soon.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Let's say that much. I want to see the follow-up from Beasty, though, because keep in mind that the Abbasid have got very cheap traders. And even though at the moment trade isn't really in the meta, and we think about the Abbasid dynasty and we think about 10,000 town centers, but I also think there is a world where the Abbasid dynasty are incredibly strong with trade. In fact, it was on this map that Beasty actually lost to trade. I think it was from Puppy Paw. I'm not sure if it was a tournament game or a practice game. No, it was a tournament game, but it felt very hard for Beasty to actually deny the trade from Puppy Paw. Now, that was mainly because he had a very good spawn. The market was all the way to the back of the map. It was very wallable, all that good stuff. But have a look at this. Louis, I think he may have spotted out what his opponent is up to because he is not heading to castle just yet. Only 3 vills on gold and throwing down a stable.
Yeah, I think one of the big things here for Beasty is that, again, we talked about this at the beginning of the game, loueMT should have the superior civilization on paper, so Beasty needs to do something a little unconventional. And I love this. There is a high upside of this trade build. There's a chance it totally flops and it's going to be a disaster. But I feel like playing this game very conventionally for Beasty isn't going to be useful. It's not going to work against the Ayobids. Now, the concern that you have over here for Beasty is that you're playing cavalry, but you're facing Desert Raiders, which are exceptionally good when it comes to dealing both with spearmen and horsemen.
Yeah, the one thing to remember, though, is that it is that double counter. So not only do the horsemen get countered by the Desert Raider, but the horseman also counters the Desert Raider because it is ranged. I remember the first time I was casting the Desert Raider, and I was like, okay, horseman should get absolutely whooped by him. And then the horseman started, taking like 4-shotting him basically. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And then I realized it's ranged as well. But I'm curious to see how Beasty looks to play this, because Louis is going to be adding in horsemen as well. So he's got the one camel and then the horseman. And I think technically that makes sense, right? Because as long as you've got the one camel to provide that camel unease, then that's all you really need.
Yeah, it's not an easy unit to obtain and consistently produce in Feudal. It's more about that debuff that you're getting, and then you're just more than happy playing Horseman Wars because you do have that debuff unit. Makes me wonder if Beasty is going to make a range to get a Camel Rider, or a Camel Archer, I should say, just to make sure that he has that debuff aura as well.
Yeah, I would like to see that coming out from him. So we do see the range also coming down from Louis here. He's going to be moving into archers. And still, this just feels like, you know, Beasty can pretty much just go 100% horseman with the exception of a camel archer or two here. Now, obviously, we've got Omnivision. We know what's happening, whereas he doesn't. But we do see now the horsemen are going to be pushing through together with the scout. It's going to spot out Louis' horseman, forcing it back. And we'll also see the archer here as well. And slowly but steadily, the walls are coming up on the south side. And I do like this for Beasty. This is a smart move. It's going to mean that no cavalry will be able to get past here. We'll be looking to connect this all the way through, but Louis is going to be heading on that south side. We can see he's got a number of units already. Beasty up to 5 traders. And keep in mind, he has picked up the unique Abbasid Dynasty technology, which gives you a little bit of food every time you do a drop-off. Well, I think you can choose what you want, but he's choosing food at the moment.
One thing I want to highlight as walls are coming up here for Beasty, trying to just shield this position from these raids, which will be intercepted. He actually built his House of Wisdom at the very back of his base, which is, again, just an added way of making sure that it's more difficult for his opponent to find out what he's doing. And it might be true that Louis doesn't know about the trade wing yet. His moves don't seem to indicate that he is worried about trade. This market is wide open. There is absolutely no pressure from Louis coming this way yet. We haven't seen him trying to aggress that southern market either. So I'm actually wondering if Louis knows about the trade wing at this point.
I'm 99% sure he doesn't know, but he knows. And that's because he sees the walls. You don't make walls like this unless you're trading. You make a much tighter onion initially, and then you'll expand it out. But these are very aggressive walls, and especially being so far away from the main base, Louis, I suspect, almost knows. You can see he's actually camping up the marketplace in the west side of the map, and Beasty, unfortunately, will lose that first trader, and trader's 100% been confirmed now. But he did get the trade off right before it died, so definitely worth. You know, whenever you die in a game like that and you've got the opportunity to say worth, you've got to say worth. It's just you're throwing salt in the wound.
Yeah, now walls are coming up for Beasty, slowing down this game, and Louis now knows that he's facing some trade over here. One thing that's a little concerning for Louis, I feel, is that he went very heavy into archers. Right now, there's not a single unit that Beasty made that actually dies to archers. Maybe you could say that they are good against the camel archers, but Louis is actually investing into a unit that gives him little leverage in these engagements. I really have the feeling that he might have been expecting Spearmen from Beasty at this point. But right now, his unit composition isn't something I really admire. Beasty doesn't really have the raw numbers yet, but I think Beasty's composition, Camel Archers and Horsemen, is just going to be far superior.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. However, this could change very drastically if Louis decides to add in double racks. That's when it can go downhill quickly, because the number of archers can be very well translated once that happens. But Beasty's going to lose out a couple of units here. Horseman will go down. Camel probably going to go down as well. Unfortunately, kept alive here. He's going to chase after the traders instead. Beasty now moving units towards this western corner of the map. Trader, unfortunately, in the stealth forest will get taken out. And once again, the camel's going to be caught out of position a second time. But now those horsemen making their way through. As long as he's got one camel alive, he's absolutely fine. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Louis drop a barracks after he spots out the number of horsemen that are here, because this is way too many for him to handle.
There is the camel debuff on Louis' side, which means that these horsemen from Beasty will somewhat struggle against these archers, especially as long as Louis has his front line. And you can definitely see a major shift in Louis' approach now that he has seen the traders. He's a lot more aggressive to the north, and unless Beasty fights this, he's about to lose most of his traders.
Yeah, he heads in, looking to try and hit on that top side. You can see we've got Louis focusing down the camels on the back. He can look to try and position them around over to the right side. Does it perfectly. Manages to escape on a little bit of health. That's going to maintain that debuff on the opponent's horseman. And we see him now working his way through. Beastie numbers looking decent. Reinforcements have arrived for Louis. Keep in mind, he's still got the archer numbers in his favor. Needs to be careful with the camel. If it gets picked off, he's going to lose that debuff. But the number of horsemen are down already here. And Beastie holding on for dear life with the trade, manages to keep decent numbers on his side, and now looks to clean up the remnants of the archers.
This is why all these archers were worrisome for Louis. Again, it's not a unit that deals with anything that Beastie threw at him, and now he's just in a headlong retreat. I guess the trades are reasonable. He's picking off a lot of those valuable horsemen, but this could have been a lot better for Louis had he not gone so heavy on the archers. He's gonna head all the way back here. And that means that Beastie's trade is going to remain intact, more and more escalating, I guess. But Louis, he's thinking about something else. He wants to go to castle.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so Louis going to castle, that'll give him camel riders, which will be the trump card. And that will be very difficult for Beastie to deal with. So he might need to look to play an extended feudal with that. I'm curious exactly what the response will be from him, but the age up will come through now. It's going to be growth. Now, keep in mind that Beastie's got 12 traders at the moment, so growth is not going to catch him up quite all the way, but it will give him a decent little bump. On top of that, he's also going to have access to the relics and then the sacred sites. He's got decent map control, but have a look at this. Louis is now going to be up against full walls as Beastie looks to wall the entirety of the map, including the relic on that top side.
It's a very long wall to protect, but it's almost a lifeline for Beastie. Once Camel Lancers start coming out for Louis, Beastie's gonna be in an awful position. And let's not forget, he's already taking Hunt and Berries to the south, so he doesn't have a lot of safe food to work with. If those Camel Lancers start roaming the map, things could get very, very dicey over here for Beastie. But luckily for him, Louis is still insisting on the use of archers. That's the only kind of a unit that he's making right now. At least Beastie himself has his own archers, so Louis has something to trade with. But at the end of the day, I'm just not a big fan of Louis' current unit composition. We're going to have to see how that Castle Age power spikes comes into play, if at all. One thing is sure, Beastie can't really accelerate his way up to Castle Age, and that's something that Louis could leverage.
Yeah, you're 100% right. The other thing to note that right now is the most dangerous time for the Aeobids. So many games I've casted where I have seen the Aeobids going Castle Age, just about to hit Castle, and then the enemy units arrive. And it's taken so long to get to Castle Age, but they lose a heap of villagers. So I'd love to see Beastie look for that attack, look for that angle as soon as his opponent hits Castle Age, because guess what? There's 8 more villagers on the field that you can take out, 8 less villagers that can fit in the town center. So he's going to look to try and siege down the gate. He'll get met by a couple of archers on the front. He's clicked up to Castle Age as well behind this because he knows he's got the ability to do that. His enemy has definitely got plenty of space, but so far this is looking good for Beastie. The most important thing now is just maintaining the integrity of his walls and making sure he's going to have an answer to these camel riders, or rather to these camel lancers.
Beastie has the mobility advantage, which is critical here. He just needs to run circles around Louis' base, and as long as he does that, Louis cannot really move out. And that's exactly what he's doing to accomplish 2 things, to finish the walls and to get the Castle Age himself. He actually decides to dive over here just before the veterancy finishes for Louis, and this is an impressive timing over here for Beastie, that Manjanique is far from completion. He's willing to sacrifice all his horsemen just to buy time and get to Castle Age himself.
Yeah, I think this is a really smart move. And you can see, even though the horsemen do so well against archers, just the archer number was overwhelming there. And a little bit of interesting intel that Beastie gets, that there was a Manjanique that was being looked at for the Aeobid player. I bet he was probably scratching his head thinking, what are you doing with why do you want a Manjanique? I got all horsemen, mate.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if Louis is grossly misjudging his opponent's unit composition over here, because, again, that Manjanique, it's hardly countering anything that Beastie has. It's not a bad unit, but it's expensive for the value that it would provide to Louis. And you see, Louis has gotten veterancy. He's actually getting ranged defense, again, on his archers. I think he's expecting Beastie to play very heavily into archers. There's no other reason. He doesn't have a single layer of melee defense, but he does have the second range defense upgrade on his archers, when he's only facing a handful of archers from Beastie's side.
Look at this, Beastie now with 5 stables. He's going to have 3 Lancers in queue here. This is a lot of Lancers. What exactly is Louis up to? Because look, from Louis' perspective, he's got 32 archers out right now. Louis, is he playing a different game? Does he think that Beasty's going into combos? Is that his thinking, that it's going to be a military wing, he's going to make archers, he's going to go into combos, so I need to defend against the combos with my own archers together with Manganiques? Is that the thinking that he's going for? Is that the angle? I'm trying to decipher it, but I really can't, Lidakor.
I feel like Louis is just running into his own demise over here. He's going to try to bash his way through these walls, but right now it's a pure archer army, and when you look at Beasty, he's got horsemen, now he's up to Castle Age. He's got lancers coming out, he's got some camel riders as well. He's actually even building springolds at this point. It's actually a very funny dynamic. Preemptively
Lidakor, look at the amount of traders there are.
But yeah,
Lidakor, did you see all those traders?
From Louis is just bad.
Lidakor, did you see those traders? Look how many traders he's got.
Yeah.
He's got 31 traders, dude. If Louis doesn't
Imperial
kill him right now, Louis loses this game.
Oh my. And I think it tells you a lot of things, that Beasty's not even concerned about this aggression against the walls. He doesn't send the horseman back home. He's fine with whatever he has back at home to deal with this.
He's going to send a couple horsemen forward just to the small group of archers. Lance is also going to be coming in up against the camel riders. Immediately take them out. There's literally nothing here to defend these poor little archers. Look at this. Up against the lancers, up against the horsemen. The cavalry is just looking to feast like piranhas right now, having been thrown into the ocean. They're just devouring everything in front of them, these horsemen. At the same time, we've got a little bit of a counterattack over on that east side of the map. But Beasty's not even going to need those units, and by holding this attack, it almost guarantees that Beasty is able to win this game. You know, I thought he was trolling. I'll be honest. When I saw him go trade wing, I said that he's got to be trolling, right? No, he knew something. He knew if he held out long enough, this would be his last hope.
He was playing for the upside, and that upside worked out perfectly. At the same time, Louis, he had a bit of a weird game plan in here. At some point, he lost his scout and he never remade it. And this is, folks, why oftentimes the moment the pro player loses their scout, they build a new one. They need that intel. And in this game, it just felt like Louis grossly misjudged the unit composition that Beasty's going for. And he's playing a unit composition that gets easily annihilated by Beasty's forces.
And see, the thing is, I feel like Louis didn't do a whole lot wrong, right? Like, he went for the early horseman. We knew that he was going to try and do that. I feel like he probably just... He delayed Castle Age, and he didn't need to. I think that's, like, the biggest thing.
At this point, mass archers might just be a preemptive response to crossbows that are meant to counter the camel lancers. Just, again, you're facing so many lancers out here that archers is just not the unit that's going to save you in here, and I think that shows on the battlefield. Beasty is pushing deeper and deeper into enemy territory, and remember, this is a game where Beasty has a 40 eco lead already, so he doesn't even need to push at this point, yet he is still doing it.
Yeah, he's doing very well in this game at this stage. I'm hoping, it looks like he's got the re-wall back done towards his base. The trade is going very strong, and remember, the longer this game goes, the better it gets for Beasty. He never has to leave his base to get gold. He's also getting extra food or wood, depending on what he wants. And yeah, realistically, now he's just moving out on the map to go and get food. But he can throw down farms at any time as well. That's another big factor here. He'll probably be looking to go Imperial Age with the... I guess he'd go the Eco Wing? Could also go... Yeah, probably Eco Wing.
I think Beasty is going to double down on Castle for the time being, simply because his population isn't convincing. He lost a lot of troops. Eventually, he's going to get up to Imperial, but I think he wants to build a bit of a population lead before he does that, especially considering that he is kind of taking all the berries available on the map, so he wants that map control. And he's in no rush. That's the most important thing, I feel. And instead of dropping keeps, he's actually dropping a lot of defensive towers, equipping them with fortifications, with spring golden placements. It just feels difficult for Louis to break into this. So I guess he is going to resort to the use of the Tower of the Sultan. Not just one, folks, but two right off the get-go.
I feel like if you've got nothing else that you can think of to win, falling back on the Tower of the Sultan is definitely the right call. I mean, do you just throw all of the units inside now, right? Like that's what happens.
Yep.
But, all right, let's see how this one goes. Could you put...
Louis had 5 more Camel Lancers, I would say maybe. He only has 3 of those out there, and Beasty does have 17 Lancers. By the way, the archers They aren't even just jumping in. Those are empty. Those are empty towers.
Yeah, that's a lot of lancers, man. That is a crazy amount, and you can see that that's just Beasty converting
Beasty's
all of
setting
that
up a
gold.
bench.
Oh,
Look at the
here it
horsemen to the
comes.
north and the lancers to the south.
Yep, and then everything's coming from the base, from that main attack route. Here it comes from the north, looking to take out every single unit in one foul sweep. Beasty runs in. He's going to work to try and siege down that first tower of the Sultan. Wants to maintain the integrity of the wall. From behind, the lancers come through. Archers and crossbows able to take out the remnants of the camels, and the first tower of the Sultan will go down. Second one will now be targeted down as well. And this is just looking like a cleanup. Beasty's got so many lancers on the field. I don't see any way that Louis holds this, Litter.
I know. This is just a complete disaster for Louis at this point. He's sitting at 94 population against 163, and a composition that's just vastly inferior. For a moment, we could see 9,000 army value against 900. Just goes to show how much better Beasty's army was.
Well, I gotta be honest, that was actually a really cool strategy. That was amazing. As I mentioned, Beasty's lost to this strategy before when he was playing Puppy Paw, and I remember he was a little bit upset because he was like, he didn't know how to beat it. It just felt impossible for him to really make any ground, and I think that was definitely the case for Louis. If there was one thing that happened in this game, though, that I want to bring your attention to, it's the fact that I feel like Louis lost this game rather than Beasty won it, because Louis was going for archers when Beasty wasn't making anything that was countered by archers.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Beasty's strategies was bad, and I think his execution was really good in this game, but he definitely had an easier time than he was supposed to have, just considering how weird that unit composition was from Louis. And when you look at this military graph for a moment, you have just significant declines in the army count for Louis, because every once in a while he moved out with all his archers, getting completely caught off guard by Beasty's composition. And for the first time in Feudal, I was like, okay, he didn't expect this. But the fact that he kept adding archers even that late in the game, with basically no support units, no crossbows against the lancers, only a handful of camel lancers, it was just a weird choice, and it was a significant contributor to him losing the game.
Yeah, I got to agree. Because early on, I mean, this is a very obvious thing, but playing up against trade, you're on a timer. Your timer is, I need to shut down trade. And if I don't shut down trade or significantly hamper it, I'm going to be in a really tough position because trade scales very well into the late game per population. And just because it's quite affordable to get into, you're only paying 100 wood for a market versus 750 resources for a town center. So there's a big difference there between the barrier price. But yeah, mainly you're on a timer. And as soon as you've lost that first fight, it's just all over. Well, not all over, but it's very hard to come back from that, especially when you look at the security of the walls that Beasty had in that game. But nonetheless, we move on to game number 3. It's all even at this stage of the game, which basically resets us back to a best of 3. We've got the Holy Roman Empire for Louis up against Jeanne d'Arc for Beasty. How do you feel about this matchup, Litter?
It is Frisian marshes, and we've seen an increased amount of trade games on this map in Elite Classic 2. I feel like, especially building off the strength of that trade build from Beasty in the previous game, I could easily see him trying to play another trade game over here, especially against a civilization that's generally slow to start, like the HRE. If you think about this, how could the HRE play this matchup? Maybe 2 town centers, eco-heavy approach on the Shorefish, or a fast castle, semi-fast castle into Ragnitz Cathedral, and then fast Imperial. Whatever you do, the HRE usually doesn't contest the map in this early mid-game portion, and that is something that gets a trade into a perfect position. Unless Louis plays specifically into a lot of horsemen in Feudal, I feel like Beasty could get away with even more of a trade than what he had in the previous game.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. The main thing I'm concerned about if you do that, and I think it might be coming, but my main fear is that if you give space to the Holy Roman Empire, they will take it. And naturally, the civilization wants to move towards Castle Age, wants to look to pick up relics. And once they get Castle Age, they're going to have access to knights. So looking to put pressure on early with a knight, and then forcing a response from your opponent in Arax, getting spears out to defend. I think that's a pretty important part of this matchup especially. So I'd be curious to see how Beasty would go about playing the game up against Louis if he doesn't do that, because that would be a really scary thing to do. But I mean, if you asked me about the last game and said, hey, what about Trade Wing in this matchup, I'd be like, kind of wild, kind of scary. I don't know if I had to go for that one. And here we are, Beasty won. So let's see exactly what he gets up to. Will he get his cock out? Will he get his Chamber of Commerce out or not? That is going to be the question.
At the same time, we also, I guess, should touch on the fact that Jeanne d'Arc, it's a civilization that you can tower rush with extremely well. Just get that tower up with Jeanne and then convert her into the archer or the swordsman form. Whichever way, I feel like Beasty's got a variety of options over here. And I think for the first time in this series, I feel like he's got a bit of a civilization advantage. Not in the usual sense, it's more like the amount of things that he can do with Jeanne d'Arc and the power of those things just greatly seem to exceed what the HRE is capable to do, especially in early game.
Yeah. I think one thing to note, though, is obviously we've seen a buff from the HRE recently. The big one is the military drills is now going to be coming through for free. It's going to be coming through automatically, which is definitely something that helps them out, especially in this matchup. You know, getting around to cover different villages on different resources with those spears. It's going to be very, very helpful. And it will also carry over into the mid game if we look to see knights together with spears. And the other thing that you can also see are archers early on, but that's probably not going to be something that we see too much of in this matchup. But I think that just that one change could be pretty decent here for Louis on the defensive. Probably not enough to swing the matchup in his favor, though. What are your percentage chances right now? If you had to give it, Beasty, what do you reckon his chances to win?
I'm going to say 90. I'm going to go aggro on this, but I'm a big believer in the versatility of JD, so I'm going to say 90%.
All right, that's pretty big. I was going to go something smaller. I was going to go like 89%. I was going to go like 60%. But now that I think about it, I mean, it's not an easy matchup, right? And you got the versatility of Jeanne d'Arc in the event that we reach late game, which these two players will tend to do. Louis, especially if he's looking to make it to late game, Beasty will probably let him. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But ladies and gentlemen, it's time for game number 3. Oh, we got ourselves a little bit of speed right here in the early game. We got out of there very, very quick, but fortunately, we've slowed things down. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 3. We're here on Frisian Marshes, spawning it on the north side of the map in the color orange, playing as Jeanne d'Arc. We've got Beasty.
And on the other side, it is loueMT, once again with the color purple in command of the Holy Roman Empire. And I guess this is where we have to touch on, once again, the impressive work that our production crew has been doing. You can actually see Jeanne d'Arc, the Jeanne d'Arc level indicator to the left of the screen, so we can always keep track of her status when it comes to experience.
Yeah. I'm going to take my hat off right now. Not that I'm wearing a hat, but if I was wearing a hat, I will take it off to Magical Cow. Magical Cow has just been doing everything he can to push the envelope when it comes to production for Age of Empires 4. And look, what we've got right now, it's pretty good. But I've got a sneaky suspicion that what you're going to have in the future is going to be even better. As long as we've got the cow on board, we're going to be fine. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about it. Lidakor, we got ourselves Jeanne d'Arc. We got ourselves the Holy Roman Empire. We've got ourselves 2 front golds as well, which makes me think that Beasty could look to be aggressive here. The gold not to the back means that, maybe he could look to try and get the knight out. We've got to have that landmark coming up soon. Which way is it going to go? Is it going to be the Chamber of Commerce? Oh, this is such a good map for it, isn't it?
It could also be a tower rush. We kind of touched on that. But yeah, to your point, this is definitely a position where Beasty can play aggressive and punish a slow opening from loueMT. Louis, by the way, opened double scouts here compared to Beasty's 1. But I'm not sure if he actually got good value out of that. Never mind, that second scout is actually doing a lot of work over here. So Louis is able to secure a lot of sheep for himself, which is kind of significant considering that he didn't have the best of all spawns when it comes to the pawns spawning close to his base.
This feels... Oh, there it is. There it is, yep. Ladies and gentlemen. Rock out with your socks out. It is time. I wish I could have said the real word, but we're in game now, so it's time. We've got ourselves the Chamber of Commerce. This is going to be built with 1 Joan of Arc. She's going to get her level 2 from this as well, and we can watch as it goes through. But how amazing, can I just say, it feels so amazing as the Holy Roman Empire to get this many sheep. This is the most amazing thing there is. Because what this means is I can go to Imperial just with sheep. Well, not really, but you can get pretty far. with this bad boy right here. This is a lot of sheep. This feels incredible.
It's extremely important for the HRE because, especially if you plan to play a very condensed and defensive game early on, having all that extra food under the town center means that it's a lot more difficult for your opponent to just starve you out, so to say. At the same time, Beasty has no intention of doing that, and kind of building on the success of the trade build that he had in the previous game, he's going to trade once again. And, you know, we had a bit of a discussion about this in the pregame, Aussie. I feel like that's a build and that's an approach against which the HRE will struggle extremely badly.
I don't know. I'm trying to extrapolate it in my head right now, and I'm just thinking, okay, Louis, here's how it's going to go down. You're just going to open with a stable, make 2 horsemen, harass any traders that you see, go Castle Age, get relics, make knights, keep making knights, and if Beasty stays feudal and he makes knights, then you're just going to add spears in and keep pushing the trade line. And Beasty's going to be forced to stay feudal because he's not going to be able to keep up on the unit count because you're going to be keeping the traders down. That's the way I feel like it should play out in my head, but whether that it plays out that way or not, you can see we've got Louis looking to try and scout out a little bit close to the town center. Fortunately, he heads back the right way, but he's looking for that landmark. He hasn't spotted it just yet, though.
The lack of landmark should tell him what's up. You always build your School of Cavalry to the front because you want your production buildings to be on the front to make it easier to reinforce the battlefield. So the lack of landmark out there should tell him that it's likely going to be a trade build, but I think one of the key things here, Aussie, is that, you know, in the previous game, we had some awkward choices when it comes to unit selection from Louis. So, you know, you kind of touched on the possibility of Louis being able to counter this trade build. This time around, he's going to have visual confirmation on that Chamber of Commerce. But it remains to be seen how he's going to approach this. You see, he's up to feudal, but he's just now starting to chop trees, no lumber camp yet. So it's still quite some time off from getting those horsemen out that you mentioned.
Yeah, so he is going to be going for the outpost on the gold. He's also picked up enough stone to get the arrow slits in there. So thinking that it was probably going to be a School of Cavalry opening here rather than a Chamber of Commerce build, I wonder how much we're going to see him actually switch things up, because we do now see he's got wheelbarrow coming through as well, which definitely isn't standard for your fast castle openings.
Yeah, one thing I kind of disliked about Louis' approach is that he was very late scouting that landmark when you consider that he had 2 scouts. Sure enough, he wanted to maximize the amount of sheep he got, but even as he was aging up, he already had a lot of sheep to work with. He could have used one of those scouts to try and look for the landmark a little sooner. And as you kind of touched on this, you actually see he had a tower on the gold mine, so he probably was expecting some level of aggression, maybe just from Jeanne d'Arc herself, but still, if this indeed is a setup where Louis had to change things up upon seeing the landmark, it's a bit of a misplay in some ways, because he was supposed to scout that landmark a little sooner and build his game plan around that. Looks like he's just going to rush Castle Age now, obviously. Having all that sheep is going to come in handy. But Beasty does have the knights coming out already, and this is kind of what I had on my mind when I said that I like JD against HRE here a lot. It's going to be knight versus knight, but those Jeanne d'Arc knights are almost as good as the Castle Age knights from Louis.
Yeah, they are. Definitely in high micro fights like this, where you've got Beasty, who's one of the best micro gamers in the world. This is where the Jeanne d'Arc, or where Jeanne d'Arc shines. You know, you've got knights that are going to be running in and running out on low health. And have a look at this. We got double villager coming in on the bottom side. Going to be looking for an outpost. Louis is going to be throwing up a second one, immediately pulling the prelate as well, just making sure he's got the heals, and he is going to be fine. He will be able to cover. And now that villager idle time will come through here for Beasty. He'll be idling out those 2 vills. They're just going to head back to the drawing board. But look at this. He is going to make a bit of a push here. Now, keep in mind, Louis doesn't have a stable at this stage. Doesn't have any way to produce military. John? Oh,
it's gonna be on the it's gonna be on the berries, and this is where you know, having all that sheep is going to come in so handy over here for Louis. Jeanne is actually very low.
How did she get so low? I didn't even see that.
It might have been
gonna run
DC fire
through
or
now.
something, but that's, I don't know if the scouts can finish her off. It looks like that knight is gonna come in just in time.
She's got passive healing as well, and now the arrow slits. I don't think he's going to be able to hit the vills, so it's a perfect little spot.
It's not going to do much, though, aside from blocking the berries. And I'm actually wondering if Louis is going to go Burgrave here. He's got a lot of food to work with, safe gold. If he wants to play Burgrave, I think he has what he needs for that.
All right, well, I think it'd be absolutely crazy to go Burgrave at this stage. Hopefully he goes Ragnets, because I feel like if you go He's actually doing it, Lidakor. You called it. I can't believe it. What's the plan? You just go Burgrave and kill him with men-at-arms or spears? I don't even know.
It's 4 men-at-arms, and I honestly love it. I think one of the big things you get from Burgrave is a quick build-up. The problem that you have over here is that Beasty can run away with the game if he is left untouched for a long time. But Beasty doesn't have impressive production. He's got a single stable, actually make it triple stable soon, but Beasty's eco isn't really good enough to mass-produce knights at this point. And if you just start spamming a bunch of men-at-arms, maybe supported by a handful of spearmen into the eco, Beasty could easily start losing his food villagers. He could start losing some of those traders. I don't think it's sustainable for Louis. It's essentially an all-in many ways. But, you know, risk big, win big, I guess.
That's exactly it. Now we can see a little bit of a threat coming in once again on the gold vein. Age up will be coming through shortly. Very late on this age up, though. You know, typically we're seeing HRE aging up around somewhere in that 6:37 minute mark. Definitely quite a late age up here today as it finally comes through just shy of the 9-minute mark. And it's going to be mass spears that he's going for. So we'll be looking to go absolutely ham. And this really makes sense. And I guess one of the other things to note is he can't really take this outpost down on the bottom side because he will expose himself. Let's take a look and see from Beasty's line of sight. Does he actually spot out the Burgrave and the spearmen that are coming out here as well? If we can drop the map visibility. Oh, he does see it. He sees it perfectly. So he knows exactly what's up. So we should see archery rangers coming out in response to this, or maybe even just a castle age. What do you reckon?
Yeah, Beasty went super heavy on the stable, so this time around that quote-unquote blind counter that Louis went for is actually working out. Beasty invested a lot into his stables. It's going to be a range for the time being. Beasty is still lacking gold. One worrisome detail here for Louis is that this build-up is a little too pedestrian for me. You see, he now got a bunch of spearmen out. He's actually going to use them to potentially torch down the tower. By the time he actually has a meaningful force out, Beasty's going to have the counter. I feel like mass men-at-arms and then sending them into the eco could have potentially worked a little better. I don't think it would have been enough to deal with Beasty, but I just feel like mass spearmen over here isn't going to work, especially because Beasty fortified the tower. So torching this down is going to be a big challenge in itself. And then by the time you arrive with the spears, Beasty has archers.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's see exactly how he looks to go about this. Beasty's going to evacuate the villagers. Chamber of Commerce being sieged down slowly. Spear's going to be working it as well. But yeah, I definitely got to agree with you where I feel like this ain't it, Chief. It's just, you know, we're going for mass spears here. I think, and the response from Beasty's really simple, right? Like he just goes for another 2 archery ranges and just spams out a whole bunch of archers. That's pretty much it. Now, of course, that Louis can start mixing in men-at-arms, and that's where it gets a bit more difficult. And so that is something that we should probably be watching out for. And I think once this outpost goes down, maybe he could look to do that.
Yeah, he still has a window here, and he could do like one decisive push against Beasty potentially, but he needs a lot of men-at-arms. If you're Beasty, I think you are actually dropping a lot of towers back at home, because archers take a long time to build up, and they're also costly on the wood cost. Compare that to towers. You drop a couple of defensive towers. Wood cost is just a little higher, but it's also a lot more difficult to deal with when you only have spearmen. Now men-at-arms are coming out, but I don't think they have veterancy just yet. They definitely don't have tuned weapons or maces. Only the first range defense upgrade is in. Louis is going to go all in over here.
The big thing for me is look how many he's got in queue, though. He's got 4 in queue, which means he has got big resources behind this, ready to pump. Oh, but John going to cop a little bit of spear in her back right here. Manages to stay alive, and the archers are going to be picking up some free kills here. You've got to be careful about overextending in this situation, which it definitely feels like Louis may have done. He's dropped the spearman number quite a bit. He wants to avoid engaging with the spears at all costs. Let the men-at-arms go first, and then only once the fight has started happening, then bring those spears in so that they can do the damage.
This is why I kind of wanted to see men-at-arms from Louis. Men-at-arms is something that's a lot more difficult to counter by Beasty. If you have maces, they are fairly competitive against knights even. Oh, Louis is making a big mistake here, I feel. He is not aggressing Beasty's base directly, which allows Beasty to send in the cavalry. And now, Louis is going to be forced to chase those cavalry units around his base, while he himself is going to be chasing traders over here. Traders that Beasty doesn't even have a lot of at this point.
He doesn't care too much for the traders, but I've got a sneaky suspicion that Louis probably cares quite a bit about his villagers. Seeing as he doesn't have any relics at the moment.
Oh yeah, and he's using a Burgrave, which means that he is depleting his resources very quickly. Every villager lost over here is a nightmare. And I'm actually starting to feel like Beasty's baiting louie over here. Beasty's barely doing anything with the trade. He's got an eco lead of only 10. I feel like now louie is almost overcommitting trying to deal with the trade. Bit of a PTSD maybe from the previous game.
On the other side of the map, we do have the spears. There's a couple of men-at-arms that are in there. They're going to be looking to try and take down the archers. Nice micro coming through from louie, putting forward the men-at-arms exactly how you want to do it. Only once the knights are engaged on the men-at-arms do you want to actually get those spears in, because otherwise you're just going to be losing too many to the archers. They'll one-shot you. And even in this circumstance, you still don't need to bring them in just because there's not enough knights here to justify it. Curious to see whether two-handed axe is through and whether he's got heavy maces as well. Doesn't look
He's
like
got maces but no axe, which is actually making them a little weaker against all these archers. Decent push from louie to slow down the trade here, you feel. But again, a Burgrave Palace build is an all-in style build. And while louie is pumping out all these men-at-arms, he is very quickly depleting all the sheep he has. So one thing to keep in mind is that sustainability is not on his side.
All right, well, the men-at-arms continue to make their way down south. He really wants to rendezvous with his reinforcing units, but they're on the other side of the wall. So he's going to have to try his best to get through. We can see he's broken through, but look at the knight numbers out now, really starting to rise.
Could be cornered.
Yeah, I think he might be, and this could be exactly what Beasty needs in this game.
He's raiding the villagers. He's raiding the pond of louie. That is what possibly could decide this game, Aussie.
I can't see it, but I believe... Oh, there it is. Okay, all right. That is big. That is very big. Spear's going to try and break out. I'd love to see the Spears sacrifice themselves here for the men-at-arms. You can see they're going to try and force it back. The number of archers is going to be way too strong here. And the men-at-arms trying their best to escape. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, it looks like the knights are finding more and more targets. He's going to have to take this fight on the west side. Not the best fight. Still way too many archers here. Beautiful micro from Beasty. Knows exactly what he's doing here.
This is looking like a cleanup, and now it's getting ugly here for louie. Beasty's got a formidable army. Oh, my lord. Wait a minute. Louie says, hold on. I have one more trick up my sleeve, because this is not something that Beasty expected, apparently. A direct men-at-arms push, pushing Beasty away from his gold mine.
Yeah, this is exactly what he needs right now. Just full men-at-arms, go absolutely ham, send it.
Yep.
And we can see that the upgrades are really starting to come through for louie. He's picked up Bloomery. Be interesting to see whether he picks up the second level of melee attack as well. You can see he's got 12 plus 3 damage, so definitely doing the right thing. Going to be causing a fair bit of idle time here. Beasty looking for that age up, not going to be able to find it, at least not for the moment. Meanwhile, men-at-arms just having a field day, and this is where it starts to get a little bit scary, because once the men-at-arm numbers get high, you're going to have a lot of trouble dealing with them, even with the knights in the feudal age. Because even if just a couple of spears are mixed in, it gets very difficult to fight against them.
And maces plus 200 weapons in itself makes these Castle Age men-at-arms be fairly good against these feudal age knights. Now, this is a lot of knights to deal with, but louie might still find a cost-effective engagement over here. He needs one desperately. He's lost a lot of workers back at home. But now, he's killed quite a few from Beasty's side. Eco is neck and neck. This is a cleanup, and Jean is up to level 3. But I guess louie lives to see another day for the time being. We're going to have to see if there is a little bit more left in the tank for him, though, because now he's depleted his sheep. He is reliant on all those little pockets of eco, the hunt, the fish, and that is exactly what Beasty is going to target in the next few minutes.
All right, well, Beasty's been cleared for takeoff. He can go to Castle Age now. He can look for those upgrades, and I think that's probably what he's going to want to do here. Push out, secure, maybe do a little bit of raiding, go Castle Age, get your upgrades, and then you can just finish it off. And have a look at this. We got ourselves a trade across the map. He's doing big trades right here.
Interesting walls. I gotta love them. Just securing the villagers on the foot. But yeah, Beasty wants to go to Castle because he wants Arbaletria. As you kind of touched on that, knights, unless you have a numbers advantage, you won't beat these men-at-arms with them. But once Beasty gets to Castle and he gets Arbaletria, this whole composition from louie is going to fall apart.
Yeah, this is going to be really tough for louie, because keep in mind, behind this, he's got one relic in his possession. Second relic has been picked up, but these are not Regnit's relics. These are just poor little relics. We will see the Wallalol come down. Not going to be able to do too much here, and villager's going to get chased away. Slowly and steadily, that villager count starts to fall for louie, being raided in multiple positions here. All right, it's going to go down. Underneath the arc, and there's also villagers that are going down. They're falling everywhere right now, Lidakor.
Yeah, it's a lot of casualties on Louis' side. It becomes a now or never almost because his eco is a complete train wreck. But he's sending all the men-at-arms across, and Beasty doesn't have more than 4 knights. He's just now queuing up the Arbaletier. I feel like Louis could punish over here. It's almost his only lifeline at this point in this game, but that feels like a scary push going into Beasty's base.
Yeah, the other thing to note is he's not going for veterancy on the archers, and he's not looking to pick up +2 ranged attack
lord.
either. That's a lot of vills, though, Lidakor. This could be really bad for Beasty, actually. As you just mentioned,
there's only a handful of Arbaletier here, and this is exactly what Louis needed.
This is the Flood. We're watching the Zerg right now invade into Age of Empires 4. Look at them go. They just won't stop swinging their axes. He's going to try and hold on to Arbaletier, tanking it up. No Gambesons through, though. It's going to mean these guys are not the tankiest units against these men-at-arms. And we might have ourselves just a swing right here.
Yeah, there's a second wave as well behind this. Beasty's doing the right thing. He's actually sacrificing the archers to buy time to make Arbaletier. And remember, Beasty isn't losing eco right now, but still the posturing of Louis in front of his base, the fact that he's got double the army size and there's a second wave on the way, all of these things make it a lot more concerning for Beasty, I guess, especially because Jean is gone.
Yeah, he's going to throw the arbs inside the town center, look to try and pop them out the other side. The only issue is there's men-at-arms absolutely everywhere, and the Flood is just only beginning now. Meanwhile, starting to work down these walls on the south side, and that's going to be it. loueMT somehow manages to find a way back into this game. What happened to the Knights that game, Lidakor? There were so many Knights on the field. They went over and raided on the other side of the map, and all of a sudden there was no Knights left. That was what was holding Beasty in that game. I felt like he was in such a great position after he took that fight in late feudal. He just needed to go castle, get veterancy on knights, veterancy on archers, +2 range attack, maybe make a couple of Arbaletier, and he was fine. Yeah, but it went south so quickly.
Beasty needed about 1.5 minutes in Castle Age, and he wins this game. If he can get like 10 or so Arbaletier out, he annihilates all these men-at-arms, but you know, such a weird game in many ways. Beasty almost playing this bait trade game. He didn't go super heavy on the trade this time around, and loueMT kind of had to all in this, just being afraid of the trade escalating too quickly, like it did in the previous game. And now, Louis went super aggro with the Burgrave, and it felt like it was going to stall out, especially at that 16-17 minute mark. It felt like he just ran out of juice, but then Beasty just had no tools to deal with a second wave of mass men-at-arms, and at the end of the day, Louis secures the game, puts us onto match point over here for Louis.
Whew, but this one still has some distance in it, boys. And reminder to people there will not be a draft reset. What they have left is what they have to work with. But, you know, let's quickly just break down that game, because a crazy game, Drongo. I think the interesting thing to kind of note in that one was the Burgrave choice and the choice to go spears first. Very interesting op from Louis. Seemed like it was prioritizing the vision, removing the outpost factor to make sure he masked the next move. And that next move struck hard. I mean, I think it's fair to say that that buff, having marching drills, is even impactful still in these fast castle builds, because we're used to seeing Burgrave whiff because you don't have the mobility to utilize it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I mean, it was a really smart move, because initially when those spears come out, I think both Litter and I were scratching our heads. But then after he cleared the outposts, he switched straight into men-at-arms, which I think was a very smart move there. Never really looked to push with the spears independently. But overall, I think Louis played this really well. I think Beasty, I mean, it was a tough game for him. I think probably the biggest mistake there was pushing out in that Castle Age. But it was definitely Louis' game to win, and he did a really good job. I'm super duper impressed with Louis and the fact that he was able to pull that win out with the Burgrave.
And it's interesting, right? Because by going a Spearman, you then force the Archer commitment out of Beasty. You're essentially keeping him feudal for a longer time. That scales into Knights. And that led to that beautiful fight, Lidakor, just outside of Beasty's base, right? Where Louis looks like he's just throwing away the men-at-arms. But by stripping all those Knights away, all of a sudden, Beasty only has one choice left, and it isn't Royal Institute. So at that point, I guess, you know, Jean feels like she has to lean towards an Imperial timing eventually, this Guild Hall. And that plays more into the Burgrave, right?
Oh, certainly. I feel like Beasty, maybe he felt like there was blood in the water. Maybe he felt like Louis was just running out of juice and he could just send a counterattack, wipe out the eco, and that's it. But at the same time, as you kind of touched on that, he lost a lot of the Knights. A lot of the Knights died while they were raiding. Louis did have a lot of defensive towers. Next thing you know, Louis shows up with like 30 or 40 men-at-arms, and all that Beasty has to fight those off is just a handful of feudal age archers. No arbaletier, no castle age knights, and that ultimately ended up being his demise. So really a weird game in many ways, especially because most of the time when the first push stalls out with the Burgrave Palace, it's game over for the HRE. This time around, loueMT could muster a second assault, and that was the one that won him the game.
Yeah, and phenomenally well won game there. You know, I'm starting to see a pattern as well with Beasty. I mean, we always call him CG Cutie. I think we got Trader Cutie today, Drongo. After what we saw in the second game, worked very well. It seems that we're not going to get a Lidakor Sport sponsorship just yet. Chamber of Commerce still not quite hitting as intended, but that Abbasid trade boom against Ibids, a bloody impressive game.
Yeah, that one was that one's still hitting the spot for me. I'm still scratching my head about it, but I got to be honest, man. Beasty's cooking up some good strats today. I want to see what he brings out here in game number 4 because naturally, when you said that, you know, normally we have CG Cutie, but today we got Tradie Cutie. Straight away, I looked at his civilizations and I said, okay, which one is the civilization that he's got to be able to trade here? He's got the English, he's got the Japanese. Not really. And then I looked, I said, what about the Malians? He hasn't used them. And then boom, there they are on the main screen. So it's going to be Malians. Will we see him potentially look to go for Malian trade? I tell you what, I would be excited if we did.
A full trade-off on each side, right? Silver Tree versus the scaling trade of the Malians. Another kind of interesting thing is like my brain after that second game, I'm thinking, is there anything Louis could do that's weirder, right? We saw that Tower of the Song game, and you remember when like earlier Drongo was like, things that you'd use a VPN to hide things you were doing. I think that's exactly why I'd actually want to get my hands on Surfshark VPN. If I was going to do a Tower of the Sultan game like that, I don't want that anywhere on my history. I don't want that to be traceable back to me. Or I'm going to admit that I would happily and do, in fact, use a VPN to hide my dirty little secrets. So guys, make sure you take advantage of that to do it as well. EDC TV at checkout. But there's one thing you could do, Lidakor, right? No, I'm not going to go there. We're not going to see Magadai. It's not going to happen. What we need to know, though, is this going to be that cheeky Deerstone Kurultai rush timing we've been seeing recently out of the Mongols that seems to be disarming the Malians before they get online?
I just know one thing, KP. Mongols don't have walls, and walls often make Gorge, or even Arabia games, but Gorge as well. Walls, they make games long, and these guys love their games long. So I feel like this could be a more up-tempo game, a lot more compared to what we've seen in the previous ones. Excited for it, KP, Louis at match point as we head into game number 4. Let's go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a look at this. We've already got ourselves a little bit of a Dark Age barracks coming down for our Malians. Let's introduce our players for today. Spawning in the west side of the map, the color orange playing as the Malians. It is, of course, the Beast. Beasty Cutie.
And on the other side, now at match point, loueMT in command of the Mongols in purple. A civilization matchup, Aussie, that we don't super commonly see. By the way, I just want to touch on the fact that you have your TC right next to the forest, but you've opted to drop the Gur on the single straggler tree just to take it. Definitely an interesting opening here for loueMT.
Because it takes a long time for the TC to get down, whereas for the Gur, you can just kind of throw it down right there.
I'm not against it, it just looks awkward, right?
It does, it looks very weird. Yes, I definitely agree with you there. But so we're going to have 2 Dark Age Raxes coming out for these 2 players. Let's talk a little bit about this, Lidakor, because, well, this is going to get fun. So we've got the Donzo that does pretty well in the Dark Age, particularly because not only does it have its javelin that it throws, but it's also got 1 melee armor. Might not seem like a big deal, but when you consider spear fights, spears don't have a lot of damage. So if you can reduce 7 damage to 6 damage or 8 damage to 7 damage, then all of a sudden, that's a lot of mitigation.
Of course, and you can also throw your spear with the Donzo, so you can actually land a hit before the battle even begins. Now, one thing I want to touch on is that Beasty did this barracks build before scouting the enemy base. So this was a almost blind counter. He was definitely expecting Louis to open spears over here. And Louis is indeed opening spears. It's going to be double production, and it's going to be a tower build here. Now for Beasty, his gold mine is a little exposed, but it's towards the back. So it's a little challenging for Louis to put a lot of pressure on him. And it looks like Louis is changing his mind over here, seeing the Donzo as he pulls back the villager and the spears.
Smart call from Louis. This is exactly the right thing to do in this situation. And I think for Beasty, as the Malians going for the early Donzo here, it's just win-win. It's one of those things where if your opponent goes for a rush, you're going to be able to stop them. And if they don't go for a rush, you're just going to be able to put pressure on either their gold or their stone, wherever it is that they can't cover it with the town center. Because we're playing on Dry Arabia, we're not playing on one of those silly maps where you get all your resources under the town center, like forts. It makes it very, very easy to go and be annoying. But Beasty's not going to need to do that for the moment. He's going to add in a third Donzo here. And he's just going to keep building up. And keep in mind that every single second that goes on, he is getting passive gold that's generating for him. On top of that, the fact that he's got the back gold is just so nice. It's exactly what he needed in this matchup. You know, when this seed was born, you have one player with gold at the front and one player with gold at the back. And fortunately, Beasty got the position with the gold at the back. And that just makes it so much easier for him.
It's a little tricky, especially when you consider the Mongols, because a lot comes down to where you place your TC. But I think the more important thing is that normally going into spear wars against the Mongols is a bad idea because they do get a massive discount with double production. But that's not the case for the Malians over here. Malians are more than happy chilling in Dark Age and just getting that passive gold income to offset this deficit in terms of the spear war. For now, Louis has a lot more spears to work with than Beasty does with Dunsos. But again, I think Beasty is more than happy with this. He actually has essentially the gold he needs for Feudal Age at this point just from the passive income.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So just by putting his houses down, his pit mine, he's able to get that gold passively. Meanwhile, Louis, you know, still, he's got the gird down over on the gold, but whether he's actually doing it, are we seeing a second barracks in the Dark Age? Is that really what we're seeing right there?
What am I looking at? We talked about this, Aussie. Louis doesn't shy away from aggressive builds, but this is one of the wackiest series we've seen in this entire tournament, you feel. All of these games have just been so off-meta.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I think what Louis could be looking to seize on right here is the fact that the Malian houses, keep in mind, they only give 5 population each. They've got less health, they cost less, but they give the same bounty as every other building in the game. So if you can get there, that is a gold mine waiting for you to access. So
I mean, literally.
I think Louis, yeah, quite literally. So if Louis can get his hands on that, he's going to be a happy little camper. But one thing to note is he's looking pretty good, looking pretty healthy. Can we check what the food status is for each of these players under the TC? We get a bit of a sheep count. Active sheep is, oh, that doesn't look good. Oh, let's have a look and see. Can we do a select all and see how many sheep we've got? We've got 1, yeah, so less than 1,000 sheep. Or less than 1,000 food, which might not sound, or might sound like a lot, but it's really not. It'll run out very quickly when you're pumping out Donzos and villages, and yeah, compare that over to Louis.
Cattle here.
Oh,
Beasty might actually go for cattle in Dark Age.
Can you even go cattle in Dark Age?
I don't know. I've never seen anyone try that, but I'm just like, he built a mill right next to his wood line, so I'm suspecting that he's thinking about it.
Oh, I think, okay, yeah, there it is. Oh my lord, he's actually doing it, and you know what? All of a sudden, everything's fine. Because he is committing, and wow, we are seeing ourselves a bit of a Dark Age right now, Lidakor. 6 minutes into the game, neither player even thinking about it. There we go, I take it back. Beasty's cancelled a cow. He's going to click up, but we can see he might be struggling a little bit here. Definitely not enough Donzos to deal with this. And gosh, you can see how much damage those spears do.
The thing is that, again, Louis gets all the bounty for torching down these houses, but it also puts Beasty into a weird position. He might actually struggle to make new Donzos or villagers if he starts losing those houses.
Yeah, see, and he's only got 2 villas on the Mansa Quarry as well. This is not a good position because, well, you can see he's trying to pick off each of those spears. But look at that, Louis up to 25 spearmen in the Dark Age right now.
Beasty's housed, folks. He's 37 out of 35.
Oh, it's just getting worse because he's just losing them one by one. He's going to try and spam houses down on his wood line. Oh, this isn't good right now, Lidakor. This is not good. We're on match point here. This is a 2-1 right now. You could have yourself a very quick game number 4 if you're not careful.
And Louis got the resources he needed for Feudal basically purely from bounty at this point. Wow, he's aging up with the Deerstones himself.
Oh, the age up comes through, but he's already torched 2, 4, 5, 6 houses. That's 150 gold, 150 food. And even at this point, if Beasty takes the engage and he does well, it's not going to matter. I mean, Louis just got so much value out of this attack.
Oh, certainly. And Beasty's nowhere close to being able to make a counter unit. Like, he's still just making Donzos. His houses are being torched down. He had to rebuild all these houses at very weird locations. That passive gold income is no longer a thing for him. And I feel like loueMT has just embraced chaos. And I just don't know
really
how Beasty's
has.
coming back from that.
He really has. Has Beasty picked up the hardened Donzo upgrade? Can we just quickly check on that if we click on his if we click on his Donzos? Because he doesn't have that many Donzos, but he is taking this fight, which makes me think he does have the hardened Donzo. We're not going to be able to see, unfortunately, as we got picture in picture, but don't worry. We'll never know if they were hardened or not.
Production is trolling us, man.
Yes, that was a good troll. Well played, production.
Okay, there
yes,
it
they
is.
are hardened. Okay, there we go.
But
So,
look at
just
all
like
the
his chamber
damage
of
that has
commerce.
been done. Beast is actually trying to pull a villager to save this pit mine. I think he's gonna be able to. Louis is actually retargeting. Pit mine's gonna go down. Louis does get cleaned up, but just look at all the damage that has been done to Beasty. And Louis has a massive resource bank from all that bounty.
Yeah, this is a really painful opening here for Beasty. This is so tough, and I mean, I just want to commend Louis right now. That second Rax was kind of weird, but absolutely chef's kiss. Like, it was beautiful. I couldn't believe the timing on it as well. It felt very late, but he managed to punish Beasty very well with that.
Yeah, now, one thing to keep in mind is that Louis' spearmen are mostly gone. He's just now getting the hardened upgrade, and his villagers on the hunt are awfully exposed. So as crazy as it sounds, there is actually a world where Beast turns this around. It was a very chaotic start for Beasty. He got beaten up very badly. And we're looking at archers now coming in here on the front line. No double production for Louis. I guess the thing that goes for Louis right now is that pretty considerable resource bank that he was able to accumulate. Aside from that, his army is far from impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, Beasty definitely holds the advantage here on this. And we can see he's got javelins in queue. It's going to take a while to get up to the front here. But he can just play Donzo Javelin quite effectively now through this feudal age and then rebuild behind this. As long as he's able to keep Louis stuck in feudal age, fighting him, he'll feel good about it. But we can see the archers are still doing pretty good work back here. It looks like the javelins or the Donzos will get cleaned up. Definitely not the best fight here for Beasty. Didn't take out any villagers either. Archers now also joining the fray. Definitely not the best fight there for Beasty.
Beast is going to play 2 TCs here. 2 TC Malians in feudal. He is mining stone, he's chopping wood. There's the second TC all the way to the south on the boar and the hunt. An absolutely ludicrous game here, Aussie. Just chaos all over the map.
Yeah, but look at this. Louis heading straight to it with the Khan. Doesn't know about it, but he is just beelining straight towards that position. Wants to find villagers, and boy, oh boy, is he going to find... He could find the boar. He could look to pull the boar to help out. Let's have a look and see. Oh, the Khan might not
he's
spot
just a little
it.
too late.
Just outside. Now the javelin.
Oh, he might have seen the carcass.
I think he might have. Now he spots it. It might be a bit too late though. There's plenty of vills here.
He can still pull the boar.
You can see he's got units on the way as well. Archers from the top. Javelin should be okay. Boar's going to get pulled. The vills don't have to move that far to actually get into position here. He needs this town center up though. So important. Oh, this could be it right now. Beasty, this is match point. If he loses too many vills, he's going to be really putting his head in the sand. But only 2 go down. He garrisons immediately. Town center gets up. He's only got a villager. He's only got a villager deficit of 2. So not terrible. Not terrible. Could have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah, it's still a very messy game for Beasty right now, and I'm just worried about his resource income. You look at the top of the screen, he never has a lot of resources to work with. His army is very scrappy. Look at Louis on the other side. He's got a sizable resource bank. The resource income is a lot better compared to Beasty's. Currently, he's got that eco and army lead, and it would take quite some time for Beasty to recover. That second TC will eventually get him back into this game. And Louis is on a bit of a timer right now, I feel, but Louis' position seems to be a lot stronger right now.
Yeah, I got to agree. I think the one saving grace that Beasty's got is that Louis is not trading. That definitely feels like, okay, that's a positive. Because if he was, you just know it wouldn't feel good going the second TC right now. So I think that's a big positive here. But at the same time, I'm kind of curious how Beasty's going to look to deal with this inevitable Mongol pressure that's going to be building up here. Do we see a potential castle age coming up from Louis? I feel like we might see it coming through very soon.
I actually don't know how Louis is going to follow up on this. He's making Keshik for the time being. And I think a lot is going to come down to how Louis approaches this. I could see castle age being a thing, secure the relics, get a big boost to your eco, and then snowball the game. But let's not sleep on Beasty's comeback potential over here, because Louis definitely slowed down a little. a nice little touch here, shooting across the forest using the shared line of sight from the Khan. And one thing that Beasty could struggle with is access to wood. He only has one well-defendable wood line to work with. Rest of the villagers, they are just going to have to get those little clumps of trees to the south, I guess.
Yeah, this is... Okay, I want to take a look at Beasty. Let's have a look at his base. How big is he going on cows? Because I would suspect he's probably not going to go that big. If you've got a second TC, generally your focus is going on villagers. Yeah, so at the moment, only the 3 cows are out. Does have a 4th one coming out, though. So could be looking to go into the big cow landmark. Could also go into the Farimba. I did watch a game with Beasty where he went for this really cool strategy where he got all of these cows in pastures or ranches, and then instead of putting the big cow landmark in the middle of them, he put the Farimba down instead. That was a super cool strategy. Didn't work out for him, but hopefully he doesn't emulate that strategy today. Maybe looks to mix it up with the big cow landmark instead.
I wouldn't mind using the Farimba garrison here. I feel like this game isn't going to be 2 hours long. This is going to be a game that could be decided by a single decisive engagement. And a Farimba garrison can help you a lot with that. So I wouldn't be against it, but Castle Age is just a distant dream right now for Beasty. He is getting quite a few javelin throwers out, which is going to be great against almost everything that Louis makes. At the same time, Louis' army is still twice the size of Beasty's, and once again you have a bunch of houses out here, perfect for the taking here for Louis.
Yeah, this is a hard matchup for a reason, and we're seeing right now Louis just doing a very good job of controlling the tempo of this game. Rams coming out on both sides of the map as well. This is going to be very hard for Beasty to defend.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where it's almost a pick your poison for Beasty. Is he going to try and stop this ram push or the one to the south of his base on the second TC? And the problem for Beasty is that he cannot directly engage all these forces, and the best unit he has, the javelin throwers, they do nothing against the rams. So he needs those Donzos to get close to the rams, but the moment he gets close, he's going to start getting picked apart by all these archers.
Yeah, the numbers are starting to build for him, though. He's up to 11 javelin throwers now, so ideally he's going to push up with them directly on top of the ram, look to try and fight up against the archers here. And this is not a bad fight for him to take, as long as he's able to continue kiting. This is the problem, though. This is going to be a multi-pronged attack.
And I love this. Oftentimes, splitting your forces like this is not a good idea, especially when you sacrifice this ram. But you see, this is just a diversion. Louis is more than happy with this, because he knows that by pulling all the forces of Beasty to the north, he's got a free real estate to the south. Villagers will have to flee. Ram is going to target the TC, and by the time Beasty arrives, it might be too late.
Yeah, only 7 vills in the town center, and we can see that second set of units towards that west side is still looking to poke and prod on the back side of the base. Spearman now being re-added into the combo, and now Beasty with a handful of javelins and donzos tries to hold on. He's got 7 vills inside. He's going to need to repair. He's going to need to cover fire on the TC, and he's going to need to take down the battering ram with these 7 villagers. That's a lot of different things to do with only 7 villagers, but at the same time, towards that top side of his base, he still faces pressure. Beasty losing this second town center a little bit early here, which is just naturally what happens when you go for these extra crazy TCs. That's a beautiful spot. Covers deer, covers the boar. But at the end of the day, it is very exposed out here.
Yeah, Beasty's building up his numbers. Numbers are equalizing, and I think he's going to try to save this DC here. Louis, I love the towers from him. He's got a fallback position, making it difficult for Beasty to counterattack. What's more worrisome here for Beasty is all the idle time on that eco. Villagers garrisoned inside the town center, not working. And now Beasty has to break out. I don't think he saw the towers before, because with all these towers nearby, I don't think he can fight this.
Ram is going down. Town center is on fire, but he's managing to repair it through. Javelin's going to cop a little bit of damage on that top side. Donzos, they're kind of bugging out a little bit there, doing a little bit of a dance next to where the ram was, almost taunting the ram. Look at that single Donzo. Can we get a zoom? Poor guy's unfortunately lost it, but I tell you what, he definitely did not lose the dance moves. Meanwhile, towards that top side, Beasty has repelled the main attack. Town center is still online, though, so overall, this isn't terrible for Beasty. The villager count is still kind of on par here. He's actually using a lot of them to kill the Keshiks. It's going to continue falling, though. Oh, Beasty's lost quite a few now.
Yeah, Beasty is losing a lot of villagers, but he does have some passive resource income to offset this. As crazy as it sounds, I think he is fine. He's down by just 6 villagers. That's offset by the passive resource income, but he also took out a lot of forces from Louis. And now we are getting close to that danger zone where you have a bunch of Donzos, bunch of javelin throwers, a composition that Louis' forces will struggle against.
Not to mention the cows are building, Lidakor. I get excited anytime there are cows around. As you know, typically when cows are present, they're going to enhance a number of different things. In this case, they enhance your economy, but for us as casters, cows enhance our production. So we love, you know, the more cows, the better. That is what we enjoy. But,
that's bad for Beasty, though. He's got the Donsos nearby, but once again, he's losing a couple of villagers here. He's lost 20 in this game already. And once again, this is just the diversion, because the main push is once again to the south. Not a single troop back at home here for Beasty to defend. This time around, the TC wasn't even fully repaired, so it doesn't take a lot of time for Louis to dork this down.
Yeah, it looks like he might actually just be giving up the TC. We can see units up towards that top side. They were just kind of heading top side rather than coming down here. He's got decent numbers, so interesting that he's decided. But yeah, he is indeed going to be ditching here. And this is going to be tough because he's behind 10 villagers at this stage. Donzo's coming through. Numbers are looking pretty decent for Louis. He's up to 37 archers, which is starting to get very, very scary for these javelin throwers, because keep in mind, they do like to focus down individual archers, and when there's lots of them, that makes their job harder. And on top of that, the more javelins you have to make, and they just overkill everything. Now pushing through. Donzo's going to look to try and defend on the front. Archer's going to be able to take them out. Javelin's just teeing off towards the Keshiks instead. The numbers are way too good for Louis right now. Able to push back Beasty from this hunt, idling him out. He's got cows on the back line, but that ain't going to be anywhere near enough. He's going to try and bring them forward a little bit. Go, cows. Do what you have to do.
Not a lot of Donsos left for Beasty. Those archers did a lot of work here picking them off. And you see Beasty's very cautious with his leftover Donsos at this point. He needs them to hold off the Keshik.
Yeah, you can see him focusing down these Keshiks. Louis not even thinking about Castle Age at this stage. He is all in on Feudal. Beasty going to get into the line formation. Definitely the right call when you've got this many Javelin throwers. Need to try and get that damage more evenly covered, but those Donzo numbers are really starting to fall. Archer's able to focus them down one by one. You can see him working to try and take down these Keshiks. The Spearmen going to soak up a little bit of the damage as well on that front. They're not really doing much. They're just annoying, and they just get out of here, Spearmen. So you just got to take them out. But he holds for a little bit longer. Keep in mind, even though he's down 15 vills, he does have the cows on his side.
Yeah, when you look at the overall resource income, it's still not promising, though. It's still a massive eco lead for loueMT. And don't forget, one of those pit mines is all the way to the south. It's something that could be easily taken out by Louis. In fact, I'm actually wondering if the ram that he had before is still taking down those houses in that area. Indeed, it is. And it's actually supplying Louis with a lot of bounty. In fact, he's getting so much bounty at this point that he could actually justify getting the bounty upgrades.
It's kind of crazy when you think about just how much bounty Louis got this game. That would be, you know, that would be something really cool to see. You know, often I'm thinking what would be really cool to see on the UI for casters. You know, how much bounty has our Mongol player got in this game? Because I reckon it's probably approaching 1,000 resources at this stage. So many buildings have been lost this game to the Mongols.
Population just not looking healthy for Beasty. 74 against 122, and Louis is aging up the Castle Age with the Kurotai. He's got double the army, and when that Kurotai completes, he is going to have a massive combat advantage here on the front line.
Yeah, not only do you get those extra Castle Age upgrades like +2 ranged attack and veterancy for all your archers, but your Kurotai is also going to be providing you healing and a nice little DPS boost as well. I suspect when Beasty sees this, he's pretty much going to know this is it. Let's see what the reaction's going to be from him, because this is such a tough position to hold now that his opponent has made it through to the Castle Age. Beasty's going to look for more upgrades, though. He's going to start walling in. On the other side of the map, though, veterancy now coming through. It looks like it's going to be veterancy for Keshiks, veterancy for the archers. No +2 ranged attack just yet. A little bit of a raid on the backside. And Beasty will be able to find Castle here. You can see he's got some decent numbers on the income. He's managed to pick it up.
Doesn't have a lot of Donsos, though. In general, he doesn't have a lot of forces. I feel like the danger for Beasty is that the moment he hits Castle Age, Louis is going to dive before the Castle Age upgrades hit.
Agreed.
And when that happens, Louis is going to have the Kurotai buff and an army twice the size of his opponent. And now men-at-arms are approaching as well, something that Beasty doesn't have anything that can deal with.
Yeah, that's going to be really tough. He needs to move into Sofa Warriors, but he doesn't really have the timing for it. Definitely doesn't have the space for it. And now that age up's coming through, veterancy not quite here for Louis, but give him a second or two and he'll be done, Mum. There it is, baby, coming through right now. Villagers having to be idled out. He can't get the age up through. Javelin throwers holding on for dear life. He knows how important it is to hold on at this stage. Cows They're just chilling out, having a good little time, but the Keshiks are going to come through, and that is it, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be loueMT taking the 3rd place in this series against Beasty Cutie.
Talk about a career arc here for loueMT. For so long, he was in that good, not great category, competing in all these events, usually getting taken out by the big names. But this event, he's shown that he's something else. He took out Marine Lord in the group stage, lost to him yesterday in the semifinals, but he comes in here into the 3rd place match. It plays a very competitive, super off-meta, and extremely entertaining series against Beasty to take home the 3rd place. Definitely the biggest moment of his AoE 4 career so far, and I feel like throughout this event, we've seen the rise of a new star in AoE 4 in loueMT.
Yeah, Louis has played a very methodical tournament. He's played incredibly well, and he's obviously going to be very proud coming away today. You know, if you asked him at the start of the season, you reckon you'll come 3rd or better in this tournament coming up? He'd say there's no chance, mate. But wow, that was great stuff. And unfortunately for Beasty here, you know, it's so common that we do see him make it all the way to the grand finals, and so common that we see him win those big events. But you know, it's always tough going into a big event like this so recently after a new patch, because it just means all that preparation that's existed previously for your understanding of the game has just kind of gone out the window, because there is a whole new paradigm that comes in. All right.
And
well,
at the same time, of course,
gentlemen,
Beasty is going to finish at the 4th place over here. A good run for him in this tournament, obviously. You know, he's been so successful back in the past that a 4th place almost feels like a bit of a disappointment, but let's not forget, this scene is more competitive than ever, so still a decent result here for Beasty. Obviously, he was looking for more, and loueMT, probably one of the biggest surprises of the tournament, but maybe not the biggest.
Whew, I don't know. Louis is definitely on fire. I'll give him that much. 3-1 storyline. I just want to I'm just going to take a little victory dance first of all, boys. That was my first prediction. I said Poppy Paw to take it 5-4 in the finals. We'll see if I actually hold up to that one as well. But this is incredible, boys. Let's dissect that final game, because I think it's very important to get into this. Marlians versus Mongols before the patch was seen as a kind of a more 50-50 matchup by a lot of players. A fairly balanced one, Drongo. Then we see the Mongol nerfs come in, right? This Civ is looking worse. We literally had Phyllis Birdo, the most prolific Mongol spammer on the ladder right now, just saying, it's done. There's no way you can possibly win. The true doomsayer. Yet Louis is able to find a way around it. And you know, I want to really focus in on the micro, the multi-angled assaults. I feel like that's where Louis doesn't get enough credit. We always highlight his macro play, how great he is in the late game, and his decent drafts. But I think, you know, someone that maybe we didn't get to see yesterday, and maybe it's just because Marine Lord is just so on top of his micro game, Louis is a god-tier player when it comes to these finite moves with his troops.
Yeah, it's so important to be the attacker in situations like this, because for Beasty as a response, he needs to make sure that he sends enough units to kill whatever it is that's attacking him from that second angle. But he also needs to make sure he doesn't send too many units that now, because he's being attacked from that second angle, he needs to make sure that the first angle gets the appropriate coverage. And that's what I think we saw Beasty not necessarily struggle with here, but Louis just did very well with his control. He was always really on the ball from that top side. And it felt like even though he was attacking there, he was never really committing there. And that's what I think was so impressive. The goal was always that second town center. Even after the Ram went down the first time, the goal was still always the town center. It was the big focus. And that was a smart move from Louis. He knew exactly where to go to hurt Beasty, and that's what did it for him.
A divide and conquer approach, right? Like, I think we always say the Malians, the tricky part about them is the way they turtle. They hold one location and they are impenetrable in that element. So I guess the big question, Lidakor, has to be on that second TC, so wide, so far out there. Did that seem to be Beasty's undoing here?
I would be reluctant to say that, because that was more of the contingency plan. Not even plan B, not even plan C. It was like plan K at this point. With all that chaos going on in Dark Age, he just had to go for it. I feel like if I wanted to say why this game went the way it did, it was because Louis was able to balance out two-pronged attacks. And that's awfully difficult to do. So many times you see players trying to replicate this thing, and what they end up with is two small groups that get cleaned up individually, so you have your entire army lost instead of having one decisive push. What Louis was able to accomplish in this game is split up his forces without getting cleaned up in those smaller groups, and be able to really effectively mount an aggressive play against one of the best defenders in the entire game.
Nah, and on top of that, I think it's fair to say Deerstone is getting its dues. Like, for a long time, Drongo, everyone's been crazy about Silvertree. They've wanted the trade, but we already pointed out in this series, Beasty is the trader. That's the only way it's allowed to play out. I love that we're seeing a lot more Deerstone, and I don't know about you, but I feel like this has been slept on, and this game was a pristine example of the impact you still get out of that landmark.
Yeah, it was wonderful movement, wonderful control that came out from Louis. We saw it very well used throughout that game. I do miss the trade though. I'm a big trader when it comes to
You missed the trade. Half the games in this series had it, Drongo.
I know, but I'm just looking at the numbers here and I'm thinking maybe if Beasty had gone for trade, there would have been a chance. No, probably not. No chance at all.
All right.
But
Do you want to get real with the numbers? Here's one for you, boys. We love these players. They're entertaining, but let's be totally real, right? Third place match, final game, truly was the trash game because both of these guys whipped out the worst performing civs. Mongols actually just improved a little bit from a 20% win rate, but that now means that Marlians Lidakor, the former dominant civ in competitive play, has 0 wins and 5 losses in these playoffs. Is it fair to say that whoever picks Marlians in this upcoming grand finals is doomed?
I would be hesitant to say that, but we're going to have to see, KP. I honestly don't know what to expect from that series because as much as we had a somewhat unconventional matchup here in the third place match, we do have one in the grand finals as well. And, as we touched on, loueMT being one of the rising stars, Puppypaw also kicking the doors in. He's been out there at the top for a long time, but this is going to be the first time for him playing a grand finals.